I'm Michelle, and we're going to talk about how I and you can use mindfulness, compassion, and connection to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Hi, I'm Michelle, and today we're going to talk about sibling fighting over the summer. Ugh. I help parents who want to parent peacefully, to foster strong relationships with their children, and at times find it really hard. When my kids were small, I found myself so overwhelmed and burnt out. Not only did I struggle with responding peacefully or playfully, I got caught in an awful yelling pattern, followed by an overwhelming shame because yelling was the last thing that I wanted to do. Now, let's talk about how I and you can use the science of mindfulness and self compassion to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. So, sibling fighting. I think that any of us that have multiple children definitely see an uptick in sibling fighting when it's the summertime. And this can be really hard because, of course, it's hard to see your children fighting anytime ever. And yeah, so let's talk about where are the triggers or hooks in this for you? Where do you find yourself getting reactive? And how could you step out of that reactivity? Yeah, and find a new and different way to handle this. So let's just talk about what's stressful about our kids fighting. It's really painful to see two people you love hurting each other, sometimes with words, sometimes physically hurting each other. It's awful. And that protective instinct comes in where you want to protect both of your children. But how do you protect both of them when they're hurting each other? It's so hard not to get reactive when our kids fight. It's so hard. This is one of those times that for me, it's the hardest to use that peaceful, respectful parenting approach that I want to use, that I know will be helpful for them, that I know will foster their relationship. And it doesn't make it any easier. Knowing this, I mean, okay, it does make it easier, but intellectually, we can want to do one thing. And emotionally, when we get hooked or triggered and we go, our prefrontal cortex goes offline, then we can lose access to everything that makes that possible. So let's talk through this. First off, let's just think about, yeah, what is it about when your kids fight that really gets under your skin? What specifically do you think to yourself about each of your children, about their behaviors, about their relationship that really stirs things up for you? You know, there might be fears there around. They're never going to get along. They're always going to be fighting. Consider your own relationships if you have siblings. How are those relationships? How were they when you were little? Did they go well? Did you fight a lot? How did your parents respond to that fighting? Was it helpful? Did you get modeling that was helpful to you that you want to repeat? Did you get modeling that maybe you don't want to repeat? Are there fears associated with, I don't have a good relationship with my sibling, and I'm afraid that my children won't have that? So just think about, is zoom out, and are there some bigger themes, some bigger fears, some underlying things that might be fueling your reactivity in these moments? And sometimes there's not, sometimes it's just really hard in the moment. And it's not about past stuff. And also, like I mentioned earlier, when you see two people you love hurting each other, another thought that can come up is feeling like out of control, like I can't do anything about this, feeling helpless, which is really a painful, scary feeling ever. But especially if two people you love are hurting each other, that feeling of helplessness can be very overwhelming for us as parents. So let's talk about some things that we can do proactively. Proactively, we can set up situations where our kids can be cooperative. So, that trying to find games and ways to play with them where they can team up against you. Like maybe you're the big, hairy, scary monster and they chase you around your house. and they have to work together to get you. Maybe if you're tired, you could be asleep on the couch and they have to work together to try to get the sleeping monster to wake up. Maybe it's a game of hide and seek and they're both or all three are the seekers and you're the only one that's hidden. So, oh, another one is like a snowball fight, crumpled up white paper, and then you just throw it around like it's a snowball fight, but it's them against you. Another one might be balled up socks. So any game that you can think of and Google it, see what Google comes up with. I'm sure there's been lots of blogs written about cooperative games. Any game that's cooperative that helps your kids work together is going to help their friendship and their bond. Also, Dr. Laura Markham's book, Peaceful Parenting, Happy Kids, no, Happy Siblings. I believe it's a great book. It has lots of great stuff about sibling fighting and how to avoid it and how to be proactive around it. And um, so lots of good tips and strategies in there, things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise think of. Also on her website, Aha Parenting, if a book is like, ugh, I don't know if I can read a whole book. She has lots of great articles that are based on age and situation. So it's a great resource whenever you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do about this? So check that out. Now they are fighting. Oh, now what do we do? Okay, so first off, try to keep an ear out rather than maybe putting both the AirPods in. Maybe you leave one out and you kind of keep an ear out, especially if your kids are kind of in a fighting pattern, and you're like, it's probably going to happen. Want to be one of those days, then make sure that you can hear. And if you hear them start to argue, rather than hope for the best, if you have the space, time, go upstairs or wherever they're at, go towards them and just go in the room. You don't have to intervene, if you hear them arguing, but just go in the room. And that might, in and of itself, calm things down. So you're noticing, like on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe they're like arguing is like a 2 or a 3. But you know your kids, so you know it. Do they go from a 2 to a 3 to a 10 really fast? Is it a slow build? What have you? But it's easier to intervene earlier than waiting until they're already fighting, right? So go in early and then just listen. And if they seem to be able to work it out on their own, great. If they seem to be struggling to work it out on their own, then you might ask to talk to one of them individually. You don't have to talk to them about what's going on. You can just go do something else and kind of move through the situation by using some distraction. If one of them is really stuck, you might ask to talk to them so that they can, kind of like vent and they can express their frustration about their sibling towards you rather than towards their sibling. And you might also validate their feelings. I know this is such a therapy thing to say, but it really works. It's like a superpower. It's so simple. Oh my gosh, it must be so hard to have a big sister. It must be so hard to have a little brother. And just sincerely saying that, not sarcastically, but sincerely saying that is so comforting and validating, right? Because you're trying to put yourself in their shoes and just acknowledge, yeah, it's difficult to have a sibling. It's difficult if people are taking your stuff. It's difficult to have to share. It's difficult because they both have, two child brains that aren't fully developed and they're more reactive to each other. Like all these things are difficult. So it can go a long way to just be like, yeah, it is really hard. Like, ugh, it's hard to be stuck inside with your brother or sister all day. Ugh, this is hard. It is helpful. It doesn't keep that kid stuck in that space. It helps them like loosen up and be less rigid and be able to move through it. So I highly recommend validating their feelings. Another thing that you can do is shift even that kind of moment that's like kind of sticky and tricky into a game or into play. And this is harder for me to remember, honestly. I find play to be an amazing tool, but like I have to really work hard to use it. So you might, yeah, grab your basket of socks and just say, you know what? I don't know what to do with all these socks. What do you guys think I should do with them? And then dump them on one of their heads or throw them up in the air. Just anything silly. There's not an end game here. It's just to shift from the argumentative and helping their brain shift out of that and into either maybe they cooperatively like get you with the socks. Maybe you say, I bet you can't get me with 5 socks. And then you run away. And they're going to happily shift out of most of the time. Okay, caveat, most of the time, they're going to much rather play with you than argue and fight with their sibling. So I'd love to hear how this goes. I just want to acknowledge it is really, really hard when our kids fight. And it's extra hard in the summer when they're together, probably more often. And maybe you're with them more often. So it's kind of a pressure cooker situation. It is just more difficult. So do your best to go easy on yourself. Give yourself a lot of grace if you do find yourself getting reactive and yelling when that's not what you want to be doing. You're not alone. You're human. I'm right there with you. You're not alone. Thank you so much for listening. Be well. And before you go, I have a free gift for you. It is the guided audio pause and regroup. It's for those moments when you're about to lose it with your kiddo or you've just lost it and you have that clarity of, I need to step away or I need to pause. You can pop me in your ears and I will talk you through that difficult moment so you can regroup and then rejoin your kiddos. You can find the download in the links or at compassionateheartmindfullife.com. A reminder, this content is intended for educational purposes only and should not be used as a replacement for private psychotherapy services. Compassionate Heart Mindful Life does not provide psychotherapy services in any capacity. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist, and this is not therapy and should not be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need mental health treatment, please find a qualified professional in your area. Thanks again for listening. Bye bye.